Hello everyone, I am the Unity Dude, and in this tutorial I will teach you how to create loading screens in Unity for smooth transitioning between your scenes. If you're looking for loading screens with custom themes and beautiful animations, make sure to check out Loading Screen Studio available on the Unity Asset Store. With this asset, you can create fully customized loading screens, giving your game a professional look. The link for Loading Screen Studio is available in the description of the video. So let's get started with the tutorial. I have already prepared a simple main menu with a few buttons and images. At the bottom I have a start button. Clicking on this button calls a simple function to change the scene. The button calls the onClick play function of the main menu script. Here we simply call the load scene function of the scene management library. If I go back to Unity and run the project, the game gets stuck for a while before loading the next scene. This is because Unity is unloading the previous scene while loading the new scene. During the loading process, it looks as if our game has frozen, which gives it an extremely unprofessional feel. To fix this, we can show the user a loading screen while Unity is working in the background to load the new scene. Let's start by creating a new UI canvas for our loading screen. Make sure that the sort order of the loading screen canvas is higher than that of any other menu. This way, the loading screen will be displayed on top of all other user interface. Next, let's add an image as the background of our loading screen. Stretch the image to cover the whole screen. Change the image to some artwork from your game. And after this, let's add a progress bar. For the progress bar, we can use a UI slider. Position the slider at the bottom of the screen and set its length as required. And as we can see, the value of the slider can be changed to show the loading progress. We can change the image assets of the slider to make it look more professional. First off, we don't need the handle slide area. Just disable this component. And now we can change the background of the slider and also the fill area of the slider. Change the height of the slider to make it more visible. Next, let's add the spinner and the loading text in front of it. For the spinner, we will display a circular sprite on a UI image. And next to it, we will add a loading text label. While the slider shows the current loading progress, the spinner will be there to show the user that the game is not frozen. Now let's rotate the spinner using a simple script. Add a new script to the spinner, which we will call rotate spinner. In the script, we need a float variable for the rotation speed. And in the update function, we will change the Z rotation of the spinner based on the speed. Back in Unity, set the rotation speed of the spinner and run the scene to test how our loading screen looks. And everything looks perfect. The spinner is rotating just as we want it to. And all we need to do is add code to make the loading progress bar move. So let's add a new script to the loading menu canvas. I will call this the loading menu manager. Open up this new script and start by importing the required libraries. We will need the UI library and the scene management library. Next, we need to make the scene manager object an instance. What this will do is make sure that there is only one loading screen object in the whole game, and this object will not be destroyed during scene loads. Also, we will be able to access this object from anywhere in our game without a direct reference. For this, start by creating a static variable of the loading screen manager class. We will call this variable instance. And in the awake function of the script, we will start by checking if there is already another instance of this loading screen manager object. If there is another instance, we will immediately destroy this loading screen object. Otherwise, we will set this object as the instance. And we will also make sure that this object will not be destroyed during scene loadings. Next, we need to make the switch scene function, which we will call from our main menu button click function. The function will have an integer parameter for the new scene number. In the function, we will activate our loading screen object and set the progress bar value to 0. Create a game object variable for the loading screen object The loading screen object will contain all the other loading components, which include the background, the spinner, the progress bar, and the loading label. Next, create a slider variable for the progress bar and set its value to 0. Back in Unity, assign the reference for the progress bar. Create an empty game object inside the loading screen canvas and move all the other loading screen components inside this object. And now we can disable or enable this object from our script to show the loading screen. Pass a reference of this object to the script. And now we can go to our main menu script and in the button click function, where previously we were directly switching the scene, now we are going to call the switch scene function of the loading screen manager script. We can do this using the instance variable of the loading screen manager. So let's go back to Unity and test our code so far. And when we click the loading screen and when we click the play button, we can see that the loading screen shows up. However, since we have not added code to load our scene, the progress bar does not move. So let's add logic for loading our scene and displaying the progress. Back to our loading screen script. Create a new coroutine which we will call switch to scene asynchronous. And inside the coroutine, we will create a new asynchronous operation for loading the scene asynchronously. The asynchronous operation will make sure that our loading screen does not freeze while Unity is loading another scene. Pass the scene ID inside the load scene asynchronous function. And as long as the scene is not done loading, we will keep looping our coroutine inside a while loop. Inside the while loop, we will set the value of our progress bar, which we can get from our asynchronous operation. After that, add the yield return null statement to wait for the next iteration of the coroutine. When our while loop is finished, it means that our scene is done loading in the background. We can now disable the loading screen object to show our new scene to the user. I usually prefer to add a short pause before disabling the loading screen, just to make sure that the scene scripts are done processing. And now we can just start this coroutine from our switch to scene function. And we are all done. Let's quickly go through our scripts to see what our code is actually doing. When the start button is clicked, we find the loading screen manager instance and call its onSwitchScene function. The function takes an integer parameter for the new scene number. The switch to scene function then enables the loading screen object and sets the progress bar value to 0. It then starts the coroutine for switching scene asynchronously. The asynchronous function then starts loading the scene in the background while updating the progress bar. When it is done, it finally disables the loading screen object. Everything is now ready, so let's build our project and test our code. And now when we click our start button, our loading screen shows up. And after a few seconds, we can see that our new scene is ready in the background. And that's it for creating a loading screen in Unity. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe.